What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Reality Lab. My name is Kayla, and if we have never met before, I have for nearly 10 years now worked with businesses, mainly in the nonprofit sector, through helping them tell their stories through marketing, communications, and overall creativity.
And I'm Christy. I'm a social worker and a fundraiser with over 25 years in the nonprofit and for-profit arena, and most recently moved from PhD student to PhD candidate. So why are we sitting down on camera? It's because we've learned that honest conversation, different perspectives, especially the generational one we have, and looking at questions worth exploring, it can lead us to somewhere unexpected. And we really wanted to bring that into this.
Mm-hmm. And we definitely don't have all the answers, but we definitely have plenty of curiosity to share.
For sure. So, what are we talking about today?
Today, we are talking about what 2026 has taught us thus far.
2026 isn't over yet.
I know it's not over.
It feels like it's been a year, though.
It does feel like it's been a whole year, but a lot has changed since we attempted our first go at this podcast. And I think some things have definitely gone to plan for just the Reality Lab in general this year.
Mm-hmm.
Some things definitely have not. And some things that we thought mattered a lot didn't actually matter all that much in the end.
At all. Like things that we were just hard line on. Not so much.
Yeah. So instead of kind of wrapping all of this up with a nice little lessons learned bow, we figured we would come have the conversation and debrief with each other while we are still in the thick of it, figuring it all out.
And processing some reality checks.
Yeah. So, speaking of processing some reality checks, a couple that I think you and I have come face to face with this year.
Mm-hmm.
Number one is the plan you make may not fit who you are anymore. Okay. Reality check number two, I can handle it.
May become a trap.
And then reality check number three, my favorite one, I think we've digested this year, is that success is so weird.
Can we admit that?
So, speaking of reality checks, let's go in.
The plan you made may not fit anymore. We've learned that
the plan you made
well.
may not fit anymore. And why have we as people, as individuals, become so committed with sticking to a plan just because we made one? So,
well, we all hear if you don't write it down and have a plan, you don't know where you're going. But we forget those plans are living documents.
Right. Which kind of leads to my first questions for you is, when did changing your mind become a bad thing?
Well, I think that it comes down to consistency and inconsistency. Indecision, it may be perceived as not knowing what's going on, and so we have such a difficult time changing. We don't, everybody knows the Friends episode Pivot. People don't like to pivot because they think it makes them look inconsistent.
Right.
And you above anyone, you want to tell me you like consistency and...
Oh, okay. Consistency over quality. So in my professional world, when I'm working with clients and I'm working on any kind of communications plan, I always begin with the two most important things are consistency and quality.
Mm-hmm.
However, if it has come down to one of the two being sacrificed, the most important thing to me is consistency. It's a consistent voice in a space and telling a specific story, because that helps people remember you. And then quality is very important, but I think it could be sacrificed to consistency. However, the way you answered that, we're worried it can show inconsistency. I think I struggle with this a lot.
You do?
Even working with you, and you would think that I would have an easier time with this working with my mother, because you can be imperfect with your family. But I think in a professional setting, I struggle with it because I never want you to perceive me as not knowing what was going on in the first place. And aren't we all just kind of figuring it out?
Well, and we've learned some things of I'm a little bit chaotic in in how I am also strategic at the same time, walking contradiction. And I'm okay with changing a plan, and that can stress you out. But because I can read a situation. But
I think some of my favorite moments with you are when you have embraced the chaos of a situation, but you're so strategic with it that there were like 5 outcomes that could have happened. And when number 4 happens instead of number 1, you're like, I totally meant for that to happen. It worked out beautifully. But it seems as though you're saying to me, I did not plan on that happening, but it worked in our favor. But in reality, it's like you were strategic in your planning and your strategy and your phone calls and your work with other people. That
she's learned the magic behind my backup plans.
Right, your backup plans. But when a backup plan is successful,
becomes the priority.
It becomes the priority. Sometimes you say things and I'm like,
that wasn't.
Did you not think that was going to happen? Like, we've actually been in an event where someone made an incredible gift, like at the gala, and everybody in the room was like, "Wow, y'all kept that up your sleeve. You knew that person was going to make that gift to this nonprofit or this charity." And you were like, "Yeah, man, I had that plan 3 months in advance." And you're like, "It wasn't the priority plan, but I'm so glad that they decided to do that." Because a lot of our job is
laying seeds and
hoping that human behavior, psychologically, people respond in the way we want them to respond.
So thinking about that as the foundation, do you see how we have to be able to change the plan? We have to be able to be flexible. The biggest problem I see with businesses, especially nonprofits, is they become rigid, and they won't have an ebb and flow. Look at, you're like, yeah, like you absorbed that.
No,
like
I know, I can understand it.
Right, because you're not rigid, but you want the plan to do the plan.
Right.
And I've never had a plan go ABC.
Right.
And I didn't realize until working with you so closely and I realize this now. I'm like, oh, my poor teams that I've worked with over the last couple of decades. It can feel like whiplash because I can easily pivot and go, okay, well, this isn't working. But
I think that's because working mom and daughter versus with teams, in their perspective, they have to be like, yes, ma'am, got it, we're going to pivit. And then they go in their corner and they're like, oh my gosh.
What has she done?
Whereas you tell me to pivot in a moment, that's crazy. And I look at you and I tell you you're crazy. I'm like, are you nuts?
Well, and it's just, you have the best way of doing the bless your heart thing. Of like, where are you? But I think I had just learned, but I always have a plan for
Hold on. We're going to pause because we have a funny story to come back when we come back to this. So we have an ice machine on the fritz. And what were you saying?
Live production. You're very good at the bless your heart thing. And I've realized I always expect the unexpected. I always have the backup plan. And typically, one of my backup plans, 9 times out of 10, is what becomes the focus or the primary, because human behavior is so unique.
Right.
And you don't know what to expect. So I think part of success is weird, and we'll talk about that later.
Yes. I think all of our reality checks really do play in to each other.
I think one of the things is I just expect the unexpected, and I get really comfortable in the uncomfortable, and others don't. And I realize you need a plan, and I need a plan. I have, business model planning.
But I also need to learn that adjusting a plan is okay.
Yeah. And it's still successful. It's still genuine. It's intentional. And it's not manipulative. When you, plant a seed, lay a seed with someone 3 months prior to going into a big event, you're honoring their legacy of what they want to provide, and they've been thinking on it.
Right.
And whatever they may do, expected or unexpected, is genuine.
Right.
But if you become rigid, and so I know the event you're talking about, if we would have become rigid in the run of show of how it went, we would have missed that opportunity, because it was all of
You're
the
right.
energy and elements coming together that allowed that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And the seed I planted 3 months ago. I'm like, hey, think about this.
You might have the opportunity to do
You
this
know,
if you want. If
if
you want the
this
special recognition of that moment, yeah.
Right. And if it moves you and it feels good, I never want anybody to do something that doesn't feel good, whether it's on the team or clients or people or stakeholders within a mission.
Yeah.
And I think when we become so focused on the plan, and it's almost like we miss the plot of the why, you know. So
Well, and I think for me, when I think about adjusting a plan, I think I feel like it is required to adjust the outcome. And maybe that's not necessarily true, because I think for a lot of us, the outcome is the goal. And we're like, I don't want to adjust the plan if that's no longer the outcome. But adjusting the plan can simply mean just changing the questions along the way and adjusting how you get to the goal.
well, and agreed. And so this leads us to another question that you've asked me. It's timing. So you want to ask?
Oh,
You've really struggled with this.
whether you quit too early or stay too late. Okay, so do you think what's worse, quitting too early or staying too late when you have already invested so much?
And that can apply to anything, whether it's a position you're in, a project you're working on, wouldn't you say? So I think that's very generationally discussed right now, wouldn't you say? I think that your generation...
What's generationally discussed?
I think that
Oh, like Gen Z, we give up too easily.
Well, I
don't agree with that.
I don't put that label on. I don't think that you give up too easily. I think that you're having that discussion, and sometimes younger generations, because older generations like myself, we do not allow the space for certain conversations, and so y'all go quiet. And the burden is on the whole team, and the burden is on the supervisor or the leader to make sure to create space for discussions. And so, yes, younger generations can be perceived to quitting too quick, too early. But
I think your generation is the opposite, and it can be stuck staying too long.
Right.
Because the question of whether I've already invested so much into this.
Yes. And that's why I think it's good for generations to have conversations. And I am not about making a whole plan based on one generation or making a plan about multiple generations. But I do think it should be considered when you have different, especially, at some point we'll start talking about AI and all that, one generation is seen as the institutional knowledge, but if we become so rigid in that knowledge, we never change something that's not working. And so it goes back to, the plan. If it doesn't fit, why do we have to hold on to it? Same thing. If a job doesn't work for you, you don't have to hold on to it. I've always
because you made it a part of some 5-year plan, that job or advancing in that job or that workplace. Ultimately, people change and people grow, and it's such a healthy thing. And I, in the past, have had to come to terms with this, and especially this year. Now, I won't say this year that it's influenced me to change jobs, because I love being creative director of CME, but it has helped me adjust my approach to work and my personal life, because there were things I was sacrificing in my personal life for work that it should have been the opposite.
And there were moments where I felt some of the things that you told me were a priority or goals wasn't getting attention.
Right.
And we never had that discussion about that pivot. And you're like, okay, we need to talk this through. And I think that's important. What I will say a note on, just real quick, is don't quit before you've had the discussion and given people the opportunity, either colleagues or supervisors, to help you when you've hit a part of a job that just doesn't feel good for you anymore. I'm not saying that stay in a toxic situation. I'm not promoting that. I have always been one because I really like building and clearing up systems and those things. And I've never quite been a sustainer unless it's in academia. I love teaching and all of that.
Interesting.
So when I know I'm not being of value anymore, I do leave.
And that is such a valuable strength as well.
I think it can be. It's very much about self-awareness, and I've never burned a bridge, and I just don't take those things personally. If I'm no longer adding value. Now, has an organization hurt my feelings in a moment? Yes, but I work through that, and I still believe in every organization I've worked with and would still help them. And most of them, I've been a consultant or advisor for them after I've left the employee position.
Yeah.
I think that it's very important to have a lot of self-awareness so that you know when to leave. And it's not necessarily about leaving too early or staying too long. It's about what do you need as an individual, personally and professionally.
And I think a lot of times, too, for our nonprofit selves and our nonprofit friends, we've seen, I guess, what I'll call mission fatigue, because we have applied a personal foundation to this question of, am I providing value to this anymore? And when you're like, I need to get out, it can burn a bridge, not just with like people, but it can burn a bridge between you and that mission, and then you feel guilt and you internalize it because you're like, how can I not serve this mission anymore? Or do I not believe in this mission anymore? And that's not it. You can believe in the mission and know that you're not serving the mission and step away from it. You see where I'm trying to get here?
100%. I think how it's different for me is I've had the same purpose for almost 2 decades. I am more focused on the teams that work for me sometimes than the mission of the organization I'm working for. And I used to think that was a problem, but I've realized that's my passion. Wellness and helping professionals is my passion. My research, everything.
Helping those who help others
that
is your
that's my
core.
Purpose. That everything has to filter through that core. Every position, every decision, because it is the helping professionals. It's the people on my team that matter for me. And that's not this. And most CEOs, executive directors, and various things, they have to think about the bottom line and the mission. And I 100% understand that. 100%.
Yeah.
I've just taken a different take on it. And so, yes, I can help in homelessness and family violence and autism and mental health and substance, because it's not about that mission. It's about the helping professionals that are driven by those missions that I'm driven to help and want to help. And I think that is what's allowed me some more self-awareness, is because I wasn't so tied to the mission, because I can immediately read the room and say, I'm of course still invested, and they would still follow me and listen to me, but I'm not of value the same way I once was. And for them, and it's not some altruistic thing, what feeds me as an individual is to make sure that I'm adding something for those people in that room. And when I'm not, I can step away. And it's not stepping away from the mission, it's allowing them to have what they need.
See, and that's so valuable a skill set to me. I keep thinking about like
it's
just
a scary
knowing
skill
when you're
set.
adding something to the conversation or when you're not. And for me, because I've been in a room before where a leader has said, if you don't believe in our solution or a solution to this problem that we are serving, then you do not have to stay here. Y'all can go. And for me, I think I'm similar. I think that's how you have raised me in nonprofit work, is you can believe in a mission, but have a passion for a different part of the workflow.
I've never seen you so happy as you were when you're telling leader stories. I remember your first job out of college, getting to tell them.
Like, I'm not always in a space
Right.
because of the mission. That is helpful. I love that
You believe in the people that are in those, and that's.
But my belief is in the people doing that work and telling their story and helping them communicate a story that then leads to their solutions. So I'm sitting there and I hear things like that and I'm like, I don't have the capacity as an individual to know whether that's possible or not. That's why you're here. I am here to make sure you have the tools and resources to tell the story you need to tell to accomplish the goals you need to accomplish.
And that's why
the art of becoming is what I call that.
Yeah, you've been that, but that has been core to you since like middle school, since you were, 13, 14. You've always been about that in sports and everything.
And I think this has really impacted me as a lessons learned this year, because I think that's changing for me. I think I'm getting to an easier point where if I just need to pivot, I just need to pivot and move on.
And
that doesn't mean I'm not still doing quality work.
and we've just taught that the plan is so important. The 3-year plan, the 5-year plan is so important. And so when the jobs that you want, when they don't fit what you need, you feel like something's failed.
But sometimes I think when you're in your 20s, and this is just cross-generation for whoever, when you're in your 20s, I think it's easy for you to look at a 5-year plan like a report card. Like you're getting a grade on it. And I think as you get older, and you've said this to me before, so I'm going to use it. As you get older, the 5-year plan becomes more of a working document.
100%.
And the more comfortable you get working through that document to change how you get there or how you see your goals.
Well, think of in May, you've been 2 years working with me on our multiple projects.
Feels like 5.
I used to say
not as a bad thing. It just feels like we've done so much since I started that it feels like it should have been 5 years by now.
I used to say working in homeless services for 6 months is a year. And I feel like I just felt that. I was like, oh, but it's okay.
I don't mean it negatively. I mean it genuinely.
We've covered a lot of ground.
Oh my gosh.
But think about how many, and I did not realize how much I used the 100-day plan. Think about how many 100-day plans you've worked with me in just over 2 years. I have 100-day plans for clients. I have 100-day plans for us. And because you'll learn, because those plans are very valuable because they're showing you is what you think, actually what you think the issue is or what you need to accomplish or the goal or whatever.
Right.
Is it really, because you will find out in 100 days if you make a plan, tactically work a plan, you'll get the answers.
Right.
And you can and that's what we did. That's what we did this year. We realized the plan we made wasn't going to work with how we approached this podcast. And we learned that within 100 days. Right. And we decided to pivot and approach it in a different way.
Days. So then we made a 100-day plan to figure it out, and then we made a 100-day plan to execute, and we made a 100-day plan to reevaluate.
and I did not realize until I feel like I'm a little under the microscope because of where I'm at as a researcher and as an advisor and a business owner. I did not realize how much I leaned on a 100-day plan, and a 100-day plan really is just a living document to me. It goes on my calendar, what's happening that way. I goal set the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I realized, I guess it would have been April or May, when talking with you, I was like, oh, wait a minute. I remember you said something. You were like,
trying to recreate
wait,
the wheel.
that wasn't on the plan. And I was like, oh, I'm not doing that part of the plan. She's like, well, we need to communicate
that. Yeah.
So I didn't. I mean, we lesson learned, but it was a very interesting thing. It made me think back of could have done this better.
So definitely, reality check number 1 for us this year is just because you need to pivot a plan doesn't make the plan a failure. It doesn't make you a failure, and that's internal deep for me. It just means that you kind of know more about a situation than you did originally, and that you have done the human thing and you've grown.
And it's led to a new way to approach it and a new plan, and that's wonderful. That's the thing, when you hear someone's been successful, I hope people know there were a lot of plans that were tabled or didn't land as successfully as we thought, and they weren't failures because they led them to that next place. So
Yeah.
So that leads us to reality check, the next reality check.
Yeah, reality check number 2, where I think a lot of people get stuck too, and where we have definitely gotten stuck this year, is I can handle it.
Maybe a trap.
How many people do you know that you hear this from on a weekly basis? I can handle it. I can handle it. I'll figure it out. And then they get trapped in this cycle.
Well, we love capable people.
Right. Oh, yeah. And what do we do to capable people?
Give them more. We reward them for being good at what they were doing, and then we make it impossible to be them.
Here's more work taken off my plate because you were more capable than me.
Mm-hmm.
What? So, how does I can handle it become a trap?
I know I made a note on this. This causes so many emotions in me because I don't think that I did a great role modeling job for you or your sister or many people I've mentored, mainly women, of
But I
how
would
to
like to
rest
say
and-
you're doing the work now to figure that out.
But I think that's the
And
way
that
it is.
means just as much as having done it to begin with.
Well, and I think that that's just when you know more,
Right.
and you can only do what you can do until you know more and you've learned, and time can only teach you that.
Right.
Only time can do that. My question when you say that to me, why do we say I've got it when we clearly don't have it, is because we don't want to admit that we can't do it. And it feels like, again, a failure or something lacking in you if you say you can't handle it. So you and you know, I've learned I can do a lot of things that I wasn't prepared to do. So I've learned, time has taught me to trust myself. I've got it, and I will do it and figure it out and call on the people that I trust to help me get it done. And I realize now that has minimized my wellness, impacted my health, not made me the best role model. And I've had to really think through my responsibility as a mentor, as a supervisor, as someone who may be leading something, that I have to be very careful about how this is perceived. That
And perception's a big deal.
it really is. I know intention, you know, I say this to you. We judge people by their actions and we judge ourselves by our intentions.
Mm-hmm.
And that we need to put that on a note somewhere and filter through that, because we can become very judgy as humans.
But just going back to, I like that you mentioned that, because judging people based on their actions also leads to another question in this trap is, why do we...
to say I can handle it.
Right. But why do we view busy... We call it busy, but they're actually just overwhelmed. Why do we put overwhelmed people on a pedestal of like, man, they're getting the work done. They've got this figured out. When in reality, if you have ever had a conversation with an overwhelmed person or a busy person, 9 times out of 10, the conversation starter is, girl, I don't know. I'm just here. I'm just figuring it out. I am just doing what I need to do to get it all done and figure it out. And you're like, oh, you actually have no idea what's going on. That's a problem. We should figure that out, because this isn't sustainable.
Well, and I think it's just now, as we're getting in, I mean, self-care and wellness has been around a long time, but everybody's self-care is different. And so I think that it's really important to remember that. Every person needs something. But we do, and we talk a lot about this because of my research. Burnout is not a badge of honor, but we sometimes make it so. And I do believe that that is on supervisors and leaders to recognize that, not...
Well, speaking of supervisors and leaders, do you think giving something to the busiest person because they'll just get it done is a compliment, or is it strategic exploitation?
It depends on whether that person has a real choice. whether something else is being removed and how their contribution is being recognized. It depends on the power dynamic. And do you create, and I worked really hard on my teams to create a dynamic where when I needed to add something to someone's plate, I had taken something off the plate. And a lot of and I learned that from other leaders. I've had great mentors. I've watched some amazing bosses. You and I both had the same boss.
We have it. Very interesting. Welcome. That's growing up and working in a big town.
But I've learned so much from that person, and I've become her boss before because I had gone on her board. But the thing about it is that is something I learned very early enough in my professional career from her. If she was going to add something to my plate, she was going to ask me, what did I want taken off my plate? And that made me so successful. But it allowed me to realize that's what I needed to do. And then later when you worked for her, more than a decade later.
But because people grow, we worked for completely different versions of that person.
She would still do some version of that, but then others would add more to your plate that she didn't know about. So it was very interesting that was core to me. And you got to see it in a different view, but they were both so valuable.
Well,
and self-care was so important to her. And like wellness, even now, even then, she's always known that was important. And she can compartmentalize better than anybody I've ever known, and be there for people. So I think that it's a very interesting thing that we learned.
Yeah, I agree. And I love how you answered this as in when it comes to whether they have the choice or not. Because when we first had this conversation about this reality check, you had asked me whether, like, when can I tell whether I'm like volunteering to contribute to a solution or whether I feel like I'm being taken advantage of. And my answer was the same thing. It was whether I had the choice or not. If I come in and I say, hey, I can add value to this situation, I can help out, let me jump in and do it, and then I get the personal reward of knowing that I've contributed to the solution, but then nothing changes, and then that choice is then taken away because the system is then reliant on me.
That goes back to the first reality check. We make the plan and we get rigid, and we don't allow that flexibility to understand that we have to have a human response. If we have if the business has a need that impacts a human, we have to be able to have a human response. And people don't do that. So I think a question we're sitting with is, when did being capable become synonymous with being available for everything? So I think we don't have to have the answer for that, but I think it would be good for anybody watching and for us to be thinking about, when did that become a thing?
Ask it one more time so I can sit with it.
When did being capable become synonymous with being available for everything? And I've done that for decades of my professional career, thinking that credibility, it was actually, I thought being capable made me credible and that I could do everything.
Interesting.
That causes a thought.
No, so when did being capable become synonymous with being available for everything? It's the figure it out. It's when the work got done and it made other people's lives more comfortable.
Well, and it gives you, so here's the thing, and you've asked me this before, why am I okay with changing the plan? I've learned how to read rooms, and I've supervised people for 30 years, way before I was a social worker. And I've just learned to read rooms, and I don't take changing a plan as lack of credibility. I think experience teaches, and we need to listen to the people that have the experience to say, I don't think this is going to work. Or, hey, I think we need to pivot. I think we need to listen to those people saying that. Because their credibility isn't inconsistency.
Which adds on to the lesson for me, because I never want to be perceived as I didn't know what was going on. When it actually should just be communicating that I have learned something and I have done the due diligence to grow a situation and have the courage to ask it. So,
and you're 100% correct.
You had something else you wanted to say there.
I did. And I went, oh.
You're 100% correct.
But yes, that's my transition. And not always my transition, but I think this needs to be discussed more. And you know how I feel about exploitation of staff and taking advantage of individuals and trying. Yeah. I don't want to create a generation of future social workers and helping professionals that can just grind. I know the work that social workers do is hard. People that work in nonprofits, it's hard. And there will be times to grind. And I have, we wouldn't go into this work if we didn't have backbone. Same thing is even someone who hasn't chosen that path, I don't want to teach grinding, and I don't want to normalize suffering. And so, that's what I was thinking. Yeah. Is I want to spend more time on, I wish more people would have that discussion.
Yeah. Which is, at the end of the day, we are all just people trying to be successful.
Oh, your favorite.
At our work.
Your favorite reality
At our goals, at our vision. At the end of the day, we're all just trying to get to whatever version of success exists in our brain. And I think that's our third reality check. I know that's our third reality check this year. Success is weird, and we have really had to come to terms with admitting that. And I don't know if you have. I speak for me.
I don't. What I perceive as successful has not ever been what others perceive as successful. That said, of course, I have coached and mentored more executive women than I care to admit on how to salary negotiate. But I remember your sister sitting in a car with me when a gentleman called me to ask for some advice on how to counter an offer. So it's not gender specific, but most people perceive success as how much salary you make and all these things. I've just never perceived it as that. I will never take a position that doesn't hit the threshold I need. And, talking about success, I have never obtained a job I applied for, at least in the last 20 years.
I hear you say this all the time.
And I've applied.
Even in the beginning, was it that way?
I think back, even before social work, when I moved to the place where I met the amazing Sue Matkin, I was recruited to go there. I had applied at different places, and I barely would get an interview. So, it just really depends. I've been recruited off of LinkedIn more than I have been someone giving my resume to someone. So success is weird.
Right. And I think too, just listening to you now, I think we spend a lot of time trying to be successful at something that we're not spending enough time even determining what success means. And I don't mean like you and I sitting here determining what success means for us and others, because that's not how it works. People are different, and people have different versions of themselves that they want to be and they want to get to and they want to grow into. And so that's why success is weird, is because I don't think we're talking enough about what that end goal even means for us to even determine whether we've been successful.
Well, and we haven't talked about it specifically like this, but what you're saying causes me to think that you have a very unique perspective, and those of your generation coming out of college in 2020, out of the middle, you graduated in 2019. End of the year.
2018, I graduated.
Right.
Get it right.
I'm into 2018. There was within a year, the world just turned on a dime, and so many things. What you thought were successful when you graduated has pivoted so many times.
Because I really only got 1 year after college before the world completely changed.
And shut down.
And shut down with COVID, the pandemic.
And it isolated so many of y'all that did not need...
That brings back some memories, because that was probably one of the hardest times in my life.
But I also remember the discussion of, how am I going to be successful
right
at this happening at this point in my career?
Well, and two, I had moved back home, and all my friends had moved across the country. And just to change it to the personal, I had no friends here,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, I've just spent the last like year and a half getting settled into my job. I haven't spent any time making friends or
Mm-hmm.
figuring out who I am outside of work now that I'm not in college anymore, now that I'm not forced into a congregate setting where you're supposed to make friends.
Well, and
How do you make friends? And so the world shut down, and I was like, how am I supposed to do this? I was like, I'm going to be alone forever. And
well, I
oh, yeah.
I do think, and I think that we learned a lot in 2020 about how you had access to some of your friends that had gone to other places, so that was nice.
Mhm.
But what strikes me is what you came out of college thinking success was, and then by the end of 2020 what you thought success was,
Mhm.
and then you fell in love with various parts of your professional life, and success
Mhm.
changed again.
Yeah.
And then over 2 years ago, you come into the business and success changed again.
Changed again.
So success is weird. And until you prompted me with this, I never really thought about it because I knew what I valued as success. Everybody
Right.
thinks it's because, she can make,
Right.
raise a lot of money, or she makes a, amazing salary, or XYZ, whatever. That was never what was successful for me.
Mhm.
What success was for me was flexibility. Do I have the time to be there when I need to be there
Mhm.
for my health, for my family, or for what have
Mhm.
you? And I didn't like choose that as success, but I
Mhm.
realized that's what success meant to me.
Right.
I was curating a path so I had more flexibility.
Okay.
And I don't know ever, it is weird, but that to me is success, not
Right.
necessarily. Now, don't get me wrong, I like to raise some revenue, but
Well, I think this goes back to the beginning of this conversation as well, because not having the same definition, so I'm trying to think through this thoughtfully, not having the same definition of success that you once did,
the plan has changed, all the things have changed.
once again, doesn't mean that you are a failure.
Right. That was hard for you.
And I remember having this back and forth where I was like, is changing this definition of success mean I'm growing, or does it just mean that the goalposts are moving?
No, and you also said, does it mean I gave up on something?
Right. Does it mean I gave up on something? Because again, growing up through my 20s, I never wanted to be perceived as like
Indecisive.
indecisive.
Yeah. That has been a big thing for you. I, for as long as I've known you, that's been a thing for you.
Yeah. So,
And that's okay.
yeah.
Nothing wrong with wanting to have a plan, and wanting to make your own
Right.
decisions and be confident. There's nothing
I'm
wrong with
also
it.
curious who set the standard? Who decided that what all we should be chasing to define as success? Because I imagine when we get out of college, it's like I want to be paying my bills, I want to starting a family, I want to be have a good job, making a good salary, XYZ. Who decided that standard?
Well, I think it's just society messaging, and that's why, again, I know I feel like I somewhat harp on this, but self awareness is everything. You must be self aware and know who you are, so that you don't get told what success is, and what it should be. I've fallen into those traps before, and I've been really careful. My journey with my health, I think, forced me to do that where others didn't have that. I think that it's really important to understand that messaging in the news and media, and you've never really known a time where you're making decisions that is without social media's influence. And you have to be very aware of that, because what they are saying on social media is successful, or not they, we, all of us are saying on social media is successful, must filter through your own lens of what success means.
Right.
So that's
Right.
who I think came
That
up
is a
with.
big one. I think my generation is coming to terms with here recently in the last couple of years is why doesn't my life look like this influencer's on social media? And really, because not even that influencer's life looks like that. That is just what they're doing to be successful. And y'all's definition of success looks different than that person's.
Well, and I was reading something early this morning that I thought was very interesting. I'm less, I don't know if it was Mel. I don't know who said it. I'm less interested in what my life looks like and more interested in how my life feels. And I was like, that messaging needs to be out there more.
I'm less interested in what it looks like and more interested in how it feels. I like that distinction. Again, it's not something that you would, because I would think both are intangible. How it looks and how it feels.
Well,
should be coherent.
When someone looks into my life, they don't quite understand it.
And I spend the most time with you, honestly, and I still don't.
I think that it's not intentional. I've given a lot of myself to people and organizations, and now it probably looks very weird. I'm on a very personal journey with my PhD and my research. I've seen a lot of talented individuals burn out and leave positions they love. And I've just hit this threshold that I'm spending time in that. And I can remember being out every evening at something. And not that I won't still be out in the evening. I just have to choose a little bit differently. And I've become very okay, especially after I lost my vision. I've become very okay with someone looking at my life or how I built something and not understand it. I used to always want to be understood, and now I'm okay with not being understood.
Right.
I struggle. I mean, even my parents don't quite understand. They're like, we know you own a business. You work in the business. You're like, I don't always understand what's happening.
I don't know what you did today, but I know you accomplished something. Or I'll figure it out in the moment. And you're like, ooh.
Or accomplished a bunch. She leaves me unattended for 4 hours. She's like, oh my goodness, what kind of work did I create for myself?
Oh gosh. So yeah, I think accomplishing the goal doesn't always give you an answer as well. Sometimes it gives you a completely different question to be asking yourself.
And that's really that's your personal journey to ask.
Right. And I think when we ask ourselves, what are things we've changed our mind about here in 2026? For me, it is that who I was in the past doesn't have to define who I am in the future.
And that goes for everybody.
Which also means that the things I've struggled with in the past on changing a plan completely or stopping the plan and making a whole new one
and something you said
are pivotal moments that I don't have to dread. They could just be getting me closer towards a vision I have for my life, but just in a completely different way than I thought.
And I'm paraphrasing what you said, but something you said that stuck with me in the last couple of weeks is you respect and appreciate every version of Kayla. You're not mad at Kayla 5 years ago or a year ago or 10. And I really think that that's valuable to be okay and be gentle with your past self as your present and current self.
Yeah. I've come full circle because, and we were having this conversation because I was listening to a video on form at the gym. So I was trying to learn something new at the gym, and someone said the only thing you'll regret about doing it this way is not doing it sooner. And I started spiraling at the gym. So I was like, do I regret not doing this sooner? And I was like, no, I don't regret not prioritizing my health. Well, I hesitate to say it that way. I hesitate not doing better at the gym, performing better athletically at 29. Because the version of myself I was in the past, I still love her. I'm still obsessed with her. And I think she got me through a lot of things that I never thought I was going to be able to accomplish. And so I admire and I have so much love for that Kayla. And I know that Kayla has so much love and admires this Kayla, or this Kayla wouldn't be here today. And so I finally answered that question by talking it through with you, because I was like, no, I don't think there are a lot of things I regret not doing sooner in regards to changing myself, in regards to growing as a human, because both versions are valuable and I love both versions so deeply.
Well, and I think that if we are going to be kind and generous and respectful to others, we have to do that for ourselves first. I do have regrets. I have things I wish I had not done, but I understand the situation and all of the variables that Christy was going through in XYZ year and why she made those decisions. And I'm, able to forgive myself and let go and still appreciate that version of myself and understand I wouldn't be here if that version of me didn't exist and go through that hard thing.
Yeah. So do you think, as we're kind of concluding our reality checks from this year, do you think there's a rule about life or work or success that you have started to question this year and that you're taking through the rest of the year?
I think, I don't think there's one rule that I'm questioning. I'm questioning approaches to things. I'm questioning, and we'll talk about this soon in the future, what's necessary. I'm doing a lot of questioning of not necessarily a rule, but that.
Yeah.
And I want us to quit putting so much pressure on young people, and also understand that us coming together generationally is going to make us stronger, and the workforce is going to look different when y'all are in positions of authority because y'all think differently. So,
and I think for me, a rule is a very hard line term, I guess, to use for this conversation, but who you were in 2019 does not need to be who you are in 2026.
100%.
And you can change your mind, and you can like different things, and you can put your foot down on new boundaries. And
Apologies.
You got your water. You can put your foot down on new boundaries and become a completely different person. And if there are people in your life who are showing apprehension to that, then maybe it's also time to consider different ways to grow in your relationships and your friendships as well.
100%.
Yeah. So, before we wrap, I have this part to remind us, because I think we're going to have this conversation again in 6 months. So I want to remind us where we were at.
Well, and I think what's really important is to bring it all back together. First off, the plan you made may not fit anymore, and that's okay. You're not obligated to keep that plan. The second one is big.
I can handle it. Can become a trap.
Be careful with that.
Capability shouldn't always automatically earn you more responsibility.
And your very favorite, success is weird.
Success is weird. Sometimes getting what you wanted doesn't answer the question. It changes the question.
Yes. So I hope there's been some interesting aha moments for anybody watching. We'd love feedback. These have been interesting reality checks.
And thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. We'll see you next time in the Reality Lab.